Got it.
Hello and welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Brian.
And today you've got a very special guest. I'm going to be interviewing. Brian does make an appearance every now and again, but He's been stuffed off to the side for this one. I'm going to be interviewing Tim,
I think I should have interviewed Tim.
Yes, I know. We were just saying that. I'm going to be interviewing Tim. He's a member of our private Moving to New Zealand community group, the Slack group that you've heard us talk about many times. And Tim is a Kiwi, Bri, a Kiwi.
A real Kiwi.
Yeah.
Actually, a Kiwi that was born in New Zealand and then
lived in New Zealand.
Took flight somehow.
Yeah.
And went to the UK.
Yeah, 14 years ago. So I'm not going to give you all his story because you're going to hear from him. But 14 years ago, he left New Zealand with a backpack on and came to the UK and never went home. In fact, he's going home next week, back to New Zealand 14 years later, and he's taking with him a wife and 2 kids and a 20-foot container filled with furniture. So, yeah. We're going to talk to him about his life in the UK, why he's moving back to New Zealand. Honestly, you are going to love this interview.
It's a good interview. It really was.
Is.
Yeah, I wanted to keep itching and coming in because he did some stuff with Anyway, we won't tell you about that until you hear it.
Well, he did some stuff with Liverpool Football
Sports photographer.
Club.
What a job!
I know. And after the interview, Brian was like, "Oh, that is my dream job."
Yeah, and he's met Gandalf as well.
Has he?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was a joke.
No.
Anyway, let's jump in and meet Tim. And don't forget, Tim is part of our community group. This is the sort of people that is in our private community group. So if you're moving to New Zealand and you're looking for all the support in the world, people who are living in New Zealand.
And this is a Kiwi coming back.
I know.
Who wants that support
I was so
as well.
Flattered.
I really was. Yeah.
He was just like, I need to join your group because there's so many people that can give such good information. So if you're moving to New Zealand and you want all the information that you could ever find, then what are you waiting for? Come on over and join our NZ Ahead community group.
www.nzahead.com/free. Get in there, eh?
Very professional. Right, let's jump in and meet Tim.
Got it.
Welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in New Zealand.
There's a whole world here.
So nice to be with you again.
We call it Aotearoa around here, bro.
You'll be right.
We are your hosts, Liz and Brian.
Amazing New Zealand in the southern seas.
See, that's where I belong. That's home.
Hello, Tim, and welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. How long have we been in contact? I was trying to think of this today. Has it been like...
good 3 or 4 months, I think.
Yeah.
I joined the Slack group, I don't even know, probably 4 or 5 months ago. And then I think I kind of, on that little intro section, put about being a Kiwi and you reached out and it's like, interesting. Why are you here?
I know, exactly. That you're the first. Well, that's what I was just going to say. You're the very first Kiwi that we've had, apart from Randy and Suzanne. She's also Kiwi, but she's lived in Canada for a long time. You're the first proper Kiwi that we've had that moved back to the UK and then moved back to New Zealand. But anyway, I just want you to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and just a bit about your family and your life.
Yeah, so hi, Tim. So I've got a wife, Jo, who's British, and we've now got 2 kids. So we've got a 2.5-year-old and a 3-week-old, 2 girls, Maya and Zabella. So, yes, sort of all go here. We live in the Cotswolds, so in a little village just outside Chipping Norton. And we've been here for 3 years in this property, which we've just sold to move. And then I've been in the UK 14 years, so period of that was in London and then Liverpool as well, randomly, but Liverpool for 3 years. I'm a reader as well, Brian, so which was pretty torturous when I first came over in 2008, but I've reaped benefits after the last couple of years and I've been doing better. So we could talk football all day, but I won't bore everybody else.
If Brian had known you were a Red supporter, he'd have been right on it, wouldn't you, Brian?
I think it's time for me to come in, actually.
So you left. Well, first of all, Whereabouts were you? Where did you live in New Zealand when you lived in New Zealand? Where were you born and raised?
So I get this question as well, which is a bit sporadic. So I was born in Taranaki, so not far from you guys. A place called Uranui, just outside. A little place called Anairo Bay was where I was born, lived there for the first 5 years of my life. Then we moved south to Christchurch and did all my schooling there, university there. And then sort of after that moved to Wellington to do some work and also Auckland before coming over here. So sort of tiptoed around a little bit of I mean, some of my friends haven't left the street they've lived and grown up in New Zealand, in Christchurch, let alone sort of the country. But so I've seen a little bit of different parts of it. I lived in Kaikoura for a little bit as well, so done different things. So I guess I'm well travelled within New Zealand and experienced a little bit of different lifestyles, Auckland lifestyle, Wellington as well, and Christchurch. And I think all of them have got their pros and cons, which is part of the decision of coming home was what do we want out of that, and where do we want to base ourselves? Because I think it is different need states for different parts of your life. So Auckland was, when I was sort of young 20s, early 20s, Auckland was perfect for the nightlife and hustle bustle. And when I was growing up, I felt Christchurch was a bit too quiet. But going back now, the thought of traffic and people, and especially having lived in London and the like, I've had my fill of that. So I'd quite happily live in somewhere like the Banks Peninsula on a couple of hectares and not be too bothered, So.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be lovely. I've never been there, but I've always wanted to go. It always sounds so lovely. And what about the whitebait in Uranui, eh? What about that?
Yeah, we used to do a bit of it. Not too much, but a little bit. Out.
So what do you do for a job, Tim? I've never asked you this.
So I'm an account manager. So I work for like FMCG, so sort of grocery companies. So I worked like the likes of Mars Confectionery before, Lucozade, Ribena Suntory. I'm looking after an American chocolate brand at the moment, working for a European distributor. Hershey's and Reese's, the brand, and then moving home, going to work in the dairy industry. So I got a job back at home as different terminology slightly, but it's called a business manager, which is essentially similar to what I'm doing now, looking after the foodstuffs account for a dairy company. So cheese, butter, milk. And got a national field team that I'm looking after. So I'll be doing a bit of travelling within New Zealand as well, which is just great to see a bit more of the country and be able to catch up with friends and family spread far and wide. So so it's a perfect role, really. Yeah,
that sounds great. So when you left New Zealand 14 years ago, did you leave was it a leisure trip? Did you go to backpack or did you go to work, or why did you leave New Zealand 14 years ago?
Bit of everything. So I was actually a photographer when I left New Zealand, weirdly. So I was a sports photographer. So I came over to the UK on a working holiday with my ex-partner, and we shared family over here. So we sort of had a place to stay when we got here. But I came over on the All Blacks tour in 2008, India tour. So photographed that, and then they left and I stayed, and then just freelance for a bit doing sports photography. So I moved to the northwest to Liverpool to photograph them at Anfield and Man United and.
You haven't photographed Liverpool, have you? Have you photographed football too? Oh, Brian, can you believe that? Imagine that, hey? Footballing the Reds, photographing the Reds. So I just hand over the microphone.
I think it's time we need to talk about sports photography.
That's Bry's dream, that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It made sort of some of those moments of sort of pinch yourself. Did a little bit of it back at home, like you'd be at kind of Parliament when I was Wellington based. You'd be at the Beehive, and used to do things like presses with Helen Clark and stuff, and you'd be sort of going, and I did a photo shoot one time with Emma Kellen and Helen Clark, and I was sitting there sort of looking at my watch going, where are these guys? It's 7:30 on a Friday. Where are these guys? I was at her house. And I sort of had a moment to reflect going, hold on, you're whatever, 22 years old, you sat in the Prime Minister's house waiting for Gandalf and the Prime Minister to come for a quick photo, and you're complaining, So, there's been moments where you, over here as well, where you pinch yourself, like I've done Wimbledon, sort of ticked all the boxes I wanted to tick, like British Open, Wimbledon, Twickenham.
Wow, Tim, that's fantastic.
Wembley, so now I sell chocolate. So a bit of a transition, but
but I suppose photography is something that never ever leaves you, is it? It's not something you're ever going to forget how to do.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that it starts feeling like a job sometimes. You're doing things you don't necessarily want to do. I think photographers over here can get bad raps. You might be out on the street in London and you just sort of get paparazzi scum, and you might be walking to a job where you're doing like a corporate job or something, but everyone just sort of tars you with that brush. So it's
is that right? Do they really?
Yeah, a bit. So you get, I think you get a bad rep a little bit. I was doing editorial photography as well, so there is a bit of that. We do a bit of doorstepping and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not pleasant. I did stuff at home with Sunday papers and stuff that wasn't great either. But it's at the end of the job when you're freelance, you kind of take what jobs you can. When you start getting more and more work, then you can start sort of being a bit more particular about what jobs you do. But the sport for me was the 90% of my work, and that's the stuff that I enjoyed. But even that sometimes, when it's snowing and you're sat there with your laptop on the sideline and trying to shoot pictures and send things, and guys are throwing stuff over your backs and stuff, or there's a field invasion and you're trying to protect all your gear and stuff like that. It's got its own quirks. So it's a hell of a job and a hell of an opportunity. And I think that stage of life, it was great. I had so many different things I got to experience, but it's not really susceptible, I guess, to family life. Like I worked all the weekends, football games at night during the week. So the guys who had families didn't see too much of the kids, I guess. So that was, I guess, down the line part of the reason why I didn't want to be in it. It also doesn't necessarily pay that well. Doing editorial stuff, the newspaper industry is dying.
Isn't it funny? You're sorry to interrupt, but you get that impression about careers, don't you? And I've always thought like photography career would be really glamorous. Plus, I thought it would be well paid. But you're sort of saying it was like people. Did they actually like chase you down the street or anything? Did they they're shouting stuff at you if you were there doing photographs? I can't.
Yeah, you just get.
Awful.
It's just, you might just be waiting in a huddle or something for someone to come out of a building who might be there for sort of a paid public appearance, sort of semi-celebrity. Like I can think of like a Formula One driver, for example. Kimi Räikkönen was coming out of Ferrari when he was racing for them, and we were just stood outside just getting a couple of pictures and going into the building, and people just walking past being like spitting at you, going, "Hey, you scum! Like, get a life!" So it's just. It's
no wonder you left that job.
That's the extreme. That's definitely the extreme. No. Even that sometimes was torture doing the Reds, because sometimes back in those days they could play awfully, so it wasn't that much fun watching them go down 3 or 4 goals to nil as well. So I actually picked a team. When I first got to Liverpool, which I didn't really follow football, and someone said, "Oh, who do you support?" I said, "I support the Reds and I support Everton and Liverpool," and they were like, "You can't do that. You've got to pick one or the other." And I went to Anfield, and just the atmosphere, I was like, "Yeah, this is the team for me.
This is the one for you." Yeah,
the atmosphere there is just unbeatable. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Bryce if you're listening, Bryce just put his thumb up to the camera and he's like, yes, I can see him next to me, literally itching to get on, aren't you, Bry? So how did you meet your wife? Was she a photographer as well, or was she in that industry?
No, so I transitioned into initially field sales. A mate of mine worked for Mars. We were having a game of golf and we were sort of complaining about being a freelance photographer, and he said, "Why don't you become a field rep?" And I said, if you can get me a job, I'd definitely do it. And I had an interview on the Monday, I think, after that, and all of a sudden had the job. So 2012, I just before the Olympics, I moved to be a field sales representative for Mars. A couple of promotions later, and I was working in the head office, and she came and worked there. So I met her on her first day, weirdly, not my first day, met her on her first day when she sort of walked into the building and was going for an interview, and just friends, but it sort of evolved, and so we can't work together. So she had to leave. I stayed.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere else because it wasn't good seeing each other 24/7. But yeah.
Now, what was it like for Joe? Because I've always thought about this. I thought, what would you do if you fell in love with someone who was from the other side of the world? What was it like for Joe meeting you? You were a Kiwi. She was from England. Yeah, she's British.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that conversation of like, well, look, don't think I'm ever going to come and live with you at the other side of the world? It's, If you dream of moving to New Zealand, then you are going to love what I'm about to share with you. 12 years ago, when me and Bri emigrated to New Zealand, we were scouring the internet, trying to find any information that we could about what our life would be like when we got here. And basically all we had was YouTube. So we made this vow. We said, when we get to New Zealand, we're going to create something that we can share with others that answers those questions that you're so desperate to know about. Like, what is your life going to be like when you get here? And that's what I'm here to offer you today. We have created a 5-day free, absolutely free video guide that shows you what it's really like to live in New Zealand. This stuff is unique and it is fabulous. You are not going to find it anywhere else on the internet. And like I say, it's absolutely free. You'll be sent a video every day for 5 days, and you will know what it's like in New Zealand. So head over to the website. It's www.nzahead/free. One more time, that's www.nzahead/free. You are going to love it. You were a Kiwi. She was from England. Yeah, she's British.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that conversation of like, well, look, don't think I'm ever going to come and live with you at the other side of the world. It's, I
can't remember having that specific, but it's been a point of, I guess, discussion post. So when I started having the conversation probably a couple of years ago, just sort of, we went to New Zealand in 2018, sorry. And we came back and we're both like, oh, we could so live there. Like, it's amazing. But my wife's really close to her parents and her family. And she was like, if only. And I said, well, why don't we think about it? She said, look, I got with you when you were in the UK. So I don't owe you to move back to New Zealand. It was never kind of discussed early on. But I don't think we necessarily made a point of ruling it out when we first got together. But I don't think it was really in scope then. And then when it sort of become more of an option, I think she was a bit like, she doesn't regret it, obviously. I hope she doesn't. But
it's too late now. You got 2 kids.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I think that was where we started to realise, and I think the kids probably facilitated that. I think, growing up in New Zealand and then seeing friends with kids over here growing up in the UK, and you kind of realise what they could be having versus what they have over here. Yeah. So that's for me has accelerated it a little bit. I don't know if we would have ended up there maybe down the line, retirement age or something like that. It's because it's always a nice place for that sort of thing as well. But it's it started playing on my mind a lot more. And I think with COVID as well, not being able to get back and see family. Like my daughter's 2.5, my oldest daughter, sorry, I keep saying I've got 2 now.
Yeah, you got 2.
It's 2.5, and she's not met my side of the family yet. So they plan to come over here and we plan to go back, and neither of those things have happened. So again, that was just another thing that was kind of like, right, I want to make this happen, and I want them to get to know her. And also, I think I wanted my kids to feel like they were New Zealanders, and I don't think they'd feel that here. If they grew up here and we just lived here and I was the Kiwi, they've got Kiwi passports, but I don't think they'd really feel that affinity with New Zealand. So I wanted them to have hopefully a memory, and if we've not ruled out coming back if things aren't what we think they'll be. And so if we have to come back, then they'll still have a memory of childhood in New Zealand and experiences and stuff like that. So
because they're that age, aren't they? They're young enough to just go. It's a brilliant age to take them. So So when you say you went, so Joe's only been to New Zealand once, is that right?
She's been with a cousin, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, right, on OE. So they travel around in a camper van for 6 weeks or something like that. And
right,
been back for, I think, 3 weeks we were back there for.
And when you went back and you just said, we went back there and we were like, we could totally live here. What was it about New Zealand when you went back and did that holiday that made you think that?
I guess it's different as well, because I was kind of looking at it through realistic eyes, whereas when you're on holiday, everything seems like, you guys are initially probably like, at least we could definitely live here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And then you start, you go to work or so in the office and the culture and stuff, and so there's just loads of stuff. When you're on holiday, it seems like it's just utopia. So I kind of had a little bit like, hold on, just don't think this is it, because the winters can suck. So whereas we were there in summer and everything. So, but I think it was the pace of life. I've got really close friends there as well, who I've been friends with since when I was sort of 12, 13 years old, who've got families of their own. I don't know. It's just everything's. Everyone probably knows how accessible things are. Day trips and the like, and doing things. It's not too busy. It's just that, I guess, pace of life. We've got it a little bit moving out of London and moving out of the city. So where we live now, very similar to that, I'd say, in sort of a UK perspective. As close as you can get almost.
I was going to say, the Cotswolds is lovely, isn't it? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. Is it not too busy where you live? Are you have got quite a lot of countryside and? Yeah,
we've got footpaths, and that's one thing I'm going to miss here is footpaths and bridleways at home. Like the fact that you just walk through farmers' lands is just insane. So we had dogs, we made the most of that. So I will miss that, but you got the parks and everything, the national parks at home. So it was a weird one. I think it was just, we just loved. We did a bit of traveling, saw friends and family, and it was just. I think we probably came closer during that trip as well, and I probably was a different person showing her where I came from and stuff. So it was just a really nice time. So I think we kind of got on the plane thinking we'd definitely do that. Like, that would not be a stretch to go there. And then we sort of just parked it for a couple of years until COVID. Really.
Yeah. So tell me, Tim, because I've always wondered about this, because is it the same? This is a little bit off topic, but is it the situation when, like when you meet someone and you're from a different country? Do you feel like you can talk about New Zealand? Like I'm comparing it to sort of like when we come back to England and we keep talking about New Zealand, I can see my relatives. They're just like, oh, shut up about New Zealand. Please stop going on about it. Is that the same in your marriage? I mean, I don't mean to pry, but are you allowed to talk about New Zealand?
I think it was a swear word for about 6 months during COVID, but I was like, no, it wasn't that bad. But I think it's more. I don't know. When it was, I was really apprehensive to kind of raise it as an option. I didn't want to hear the words no. So I kind of sat on that in myself for a while, just thinking, oh, that'd be great. And I sort of did a bit of research in the background before I sort of tabled it, to kind of understand realistically what it looked like from a visa perspective, from her side and all those sorts of things, just to kind of understand if we're in a position to actually do it. And then, job-wise and cost of living-wise and things like that, where we'd be sort of financially. And then even for her parents, for example, if they'd had the opportunity to come out, looking at some visas for them for either visiting long-term or coming out as residents if we're going to stay full-time. So it's, I just sort of did all that before. And so I was I didn't want to talk about it, and then sort of raised it. And then, I didn't have to sell anything because she knew what it was like. She knows what it's like, which is great. And she loves it as well. I think it was more along the lines of, would you be willing to make that sacrifice from, her parents moved to our village, so her parents live in our village.
Oh, do they? Yeah.
So that's like really close to walk away. Oh. So they
can come out too, Tim, can't they? They can
they're booked for a couple of months in January, so they're not going to wait too long till they get here. So, and they're both retired as well. So, they can, as long as they're willing and able to, they can come out as often as they like. Joe's not going to work initially, so she'll be looking after the kids. So, that she'll have the time to be able to sort of host them and spend time with them, which will be great. So they'll be able to spend quality time. I think in an earlier podcast, you referenced kind of the visit when it's quality time over quantity.
Yes.
And that's what I've been very much beating that drum since.
Absolutely. And that is 100%, Tim. Honestly, it's just when Brian's parents came out, they were there for like 6 weeks. When would you ever get that time, 24/7 together for 6 weeks? It's just, they got to know the kids so well in that 6 weeks. They spent such quality time. It was lovely. It was just, brilliant. It was really lovely. So keep hold of that.
Yeah, they live up the road, 4 minutes walk, and we see them every day. Our oldest daughter, they look after her, I think 4 days a week. So we do drop-offs and pick-up there, but we see them, but we don't, sometimes we've just done drop-off and pick-off. We don't actually spend quality time with them every day. You get to the end of the week and you feel like you haven't even said what you've been up to.
Exactly.
Even though you've seen them 10 times. Because just life kind of just gets in the way. So I think you're right. I think it'll be different. I think, we're sort of looking at options around technology, and I think it's different these days with all the video calling and things like that. And, there's options where I think it would have been a lot harder maybe 10 years ago, maybe. So it's and if the fact that they can travel out is I was looking at airfares yesterday, it's not cheap, but it's still doable. So
two things I just want to ask you, Tim. One, I'll come back I just want to come back to the other question in a minute, but one, just tell me about the visa. So if you're married to a Kiwi, do you automatically get entry into New Zealand?
So, I'm no expert. We're using a consultant but it's pretty straightforward from what I can see.
Right.
Because I've been out of the country as well, longer. I think it's longer than 12 months, maybe. I'm considered an expat, so she can get permanent residency straight away. I think otherwise you might need to get an entry, like a visa, and then get permanent residency. I'm not clear on exactly the details, but it was, and the fact that we're married as well. I mean, we could have been in a, I guess, de facto, they used to call it, I don't know what it's called now, like a civil partnership or something, or relationship. She could have still got it, but because we were married, it's a lot more straightforward. You sent your marriage certificate in. You still need to provide like reams of information around living together, all that sort of stuff. The norm, I think we've gone a bit overkill. The consultant's been very much like more information is better than less information. So she really wanted to get as much as she could. But we've got kids, we've got a house. So they still need like a letter from friends saying these guys are in a stable relationship. And so but it's I think it is quite straightforward from my perspective. I don't know what it's like not being married to a New Zealander, so I don't know how much more difficult, but it's definitely not. She doesn't need a job, say. Right. And I think when she gets there, she's got permanent residency straight away. So in theory, I think, like, for example, we could apply for her parents to come out on some sort of like parent visa of a resident, or something like that. So they, but I think that visa is closed at the moment. But if we were to look at that down the line, because she's got permanent residency, it was very. I was expecting it to be straightforward, and it was probably as straightforward as I expected.
That's good. Yeah, that's what I always imagined. Do you know what, Tim? When I was younger and I was pregnant, I believed that if I went over to France and had the baby, just like, got a taxi over to France and had the baby, I said to Brian, let's do that, and the baby will be French. It's like, and then it'll have French residency. And so, so that's what I wanted to ask you, because that's as far as my knowledge goes on being married.
One thing I think that's true for England, actually. I don't know, I might be again completely wrong, but from what I can understand, if you're born in England, you can get a British passport, or you can born in UK, sorry.
Yeah, but if you're just nipping over for the day just to have the baby, it's like, say if you went into labour and went, okay, let's go. Oh, Brian's put his thumb up. I'm not crazy, Tim. I was right all along.
No, I don't know about France, but definitely I think the UK. But in terms of one thing that I'll say on the New Zealand side of things is, so both our daughters are born here. They can get New Zealand passports. I think it's called by descent, but they can't pass those passports or can't pass their New Zealand citizenship on to their children, which guts me. So so unless their kids, if their kids are born in New Zealand, obviously they get it.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry.
If we say, for example, they live in the UK and they have kids here, they can't say, well, I can make you citizens because of my
that's where it ends, sort of thing. You can't just keep carrying it on down the generations. Okay.
So that's one. So I think we can actually apply for that when we're home, which is good. So I'll try and get them sort of citizenship by grant, I think it's called. So there's just random little things like that you never would ever think of when you start looking into it. You're like, oh right, okay.
Yeah, loads and loads of little. And the other thing I wanted to say to you, which I should have said this at the beginning of the bloody podcast, was congratulations, because you've literally become a father for the second time. You and Joe have had a baby girl 3 weeks ago. And that's what you keep saying, my daughter, my oldest daughter. And I'm sorry I didn't say that, but congratulations to you both.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't have to do too much. It was all her. But it's been a hectic. We knew it was going to be hectic, and she kept telling me it's going to be crazy, and I was like, it'll be fine. Like, I think it's more that Kiwi thing, like almost head in the cloud, like head in the sand. It's like, it'll be sweet. We'll sort it out. And then when the time comes, you're like, I knew it was going to suck, but I just didn't want to actually face into it. So,
you can tell Jo from me, she's got my utmost respect, because to have a baby anyway is a flipping nightmare. But to think then about moving to the other side of the world, wow.
Yeah, we moved house last time. So our daughter, we'd been in this house 2 weeks, and our daughter was born, and she was like, never again are we moving house when we have a baby. I was like, no. So I've gone one step further. So I'm sure, I don't know what I'm signing up to if we ever have another one, but it's definitely, we won't be able to do that again. So she's been very, very accommodating. I'll give her that.
Yeah. She must be a very special lady, that's for sure.
Sometimes, she has her moments.
The thing I wanted to ask you, so when you were living in the UK, what did you miss most about New Zealand? If you could say things that you missed.
I think,
you're not allowed to say whatties.
I was going to say like pineapple lumps, Black Forest chocolate fish. Like whenever anyone comes over, they just give me this like suitcase full of food. So apart from the obvious sort of food stuff and the fish and chips, I got to say I think is a lot better in New Zealand versus the UK as well. So I miss that.
A can of worms that is, Tim.
I know. So I'll leave that one there. But I just think probably and then again friends and family. I I think I've been away 14 years, so that's kind of, I guess, numbed that a little bit. I think, and maybe it's in our, I guess, kind of culture to do the OE, the whole overseas experience element. At some point you disappear for a couple of years, whether it be Australia or further afield. So you're always going to be apart from your family for a period of time. So that, I guess that was not as difficult as maybe for some people.
Yeah.
Myself. But yeah, just I think the lifestyle, I guess it was probably too quiet for me, and even like to look at work opportunities when I was a sports photographer. There wasn't a lot going on. You'd do rugby and that was about it, really. A little bit of cricket at home. Whereas here in London, literally every night of the week, there'd be like, I don't know, Elton John would be doing a concert and you'd never even hear about it on a Tuesday. And then, on the Wednesday, it's whatever, Paul McCartney or something. So you just, and then, and then there's the West End and then there's sport happening every other day, like, massive sport. So there was always just something going on. You could go to a restaurant, there's just different places to eat. The gateway to Europe as well. So New Zealand is quite isolated, obviously. So Australia, I didn't do enough in the South Pacific. I went to Samoa, I think, once, and that was about it. But I do a lot more down there now instead of looking at Australia or Southeast Asia as sort of holiday destinations, because over here you're on an hour and a half, 2 hours on a plane, and you're somewhere different. It'd be blowing my mind every time I got on a ferry at Dover and got off in France and would be in the car, and whoever I was with would be like, okay, shut up, we know they speak French, it's a different culture.
Yeah.
But every time I'd have to say it like it's beyond belief for a Kiwi. So
in a
so
different
that
country.
yeah, completely. Even driving across the borders in Europe, you're a bit like, is this it? We're just driving across this line. It's so great.
It's weird, isn't it, as well, how they literally go from one language to the next, just across the road almost. It baffles me.
I remember being in Portugal and we're on the border with Spain, and we crossed the border and I had like a Portuguese French phrase book. I said something to them and they were like, "Okay." I was like, "You can't tell me you definitely speak Portuguese. You're just being difficult. You can't tell me you live about 3 minutes from Portugal and you don't speak Portuguese." But anyway, but it is crazy that, and I think that's something that I'm going to miss going back to New Zealand. But also in New Zealand, I didn't know how big a part it would play in my life coming over here. So I didn't probably miss or think about that when I was in New Zealand as much. But I think it's probably the traveling aspect of it. I think it's harder to travel. I'm looking forward to doing more around New Zealand. But I have done a fair bit of that already. So we'll do it as a family, and taking the kids there will be amazing. And things that you thought were actually awesome when you were a kid, hopefully they're still as awesome when your kids are kids,
definitely. Yeah. I just wanted to stop 1 minute because Zoom is saying I'm going to cut out in 7 minutes. Why is it saying that?
Well, it's because you're only allowed an hour. So
have we been on? We haven't been on an hour, have we, Tim?
45 minutes.
No, 5:30. It's 33 minutes we've been on.
Oh, well, maybe it's 45.
40 minutes. Maybe it's 40 minutes. I think it's when I started it said 40 minutes, something like that.
That's all right. Well, we can just want to know. You just go till the end, and then we just call Tim back if you haven't finished.
Okay.
Another one.
All right, then. I'll do that then, Tim. I'll try and wrap it up now, okay, in the next 6 minutes.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Or I can just call you back. I don't know how.
I just talk too much, don't I? I'm sorry.
No, not at all. It's absolutely lovely talking.
Too much Liverpool chat, Brian. Jesus.
That's what it is. I think we need more Liverpool chat, actually.
So when you say because honestly, this question, I'm sure you get it yourself, but I am asked this about a trillion times a week. What is the New Zealand lifestyle? How do you sum up the New Zealand lifestyle? And you just said it. You said, "Oh yeah, I want to go back there because of the lifestyle." What would you say the lifestyle is in New Zealand? How would you just sum it up?
Again, it varies because my dad ran a pub in Greymouth, and I went from Christchurch to Greymouth, and it was like going back about 25 years in New Zealand terms.
Oh God!
So God knows what it was like going back from here. So even within New Zealand, there's variations on lifestyle, but I think it's more laid back in general. Obviously you get highly strung individuals in any culture, but it's more relaxed. Things are more relaxed. I think even with having kids now, I think there's a real sort of protective nature in the UK around leaving your kids unattended. You being at events and people being there, like with cameras and stuff like that, signing waivers for things and all the sorts of things. And I don't know what that's like. And my day, it definitely wasn't there. Yeah, it was, say, free for all. You could take pictures or whatever, do whatever you want in terms of around kids and stuff with your kids. I don't know if that's changed or not. It might be.
Well, it
similar.
certainly hasn't in Taranaki, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
No.
So it's just, I guess it's more trusting nature. I was thinking about
cameras in Greymouth.
Yeah.
Brian said they haven't got any cameras in Greymouth.
No, yeah. But even like when the phone rings and it's an unknown number or it's a number I don't recognize, you don't pick it up. It's just one of those, or someone rings and they'll say something and you immediately think, oh, this is a scam. It's just that mindset of the non-trusting mindset almost. Someone will knock on your door and ask for something or ask for help, and your first thought is, well, what's going on here? What are they? Is there someone going to rob my house? Like, what are they going to do? And so, whereas at home, it was always, you help everyone out and strangers even, and it's just, I guess it's just that way. Like I say, it obviously varies somewhat. Auckland's probably less of it, those bigger cities. But definitely in the smaller communities, it's a lot more tight knit, I suppose. And I think it's nice to have a bit more of a worldly perspective as well. I think there can be somewhat of a narrow mind in New Zealand at times. So it's nice to be able to go back with a bit more perspective and hopefully share some of that wisdom with people and friends and family and stuff like that. And sort of rub off on them a little bit, because you can take bits of what different lifestyles and different cultures and embed those in your own. So I'm not going back thinking, right, we're going to live the New Zealand way. We're going to just live the life that's best for us. We want to be outdoors. We want to be on the water, close to the coast. Make the most of our weekends. We want to go skiing in the winter, and those are the sorts of things that are sort of the ambition. But whether or not we have the time to do that realistically when I'm at home, and we work the 40-hour week, and
you will because you're not going to be sat in traffic and lining up in queues in the supermarket and stuff.
But again, that even the commute thing is one thing I'd say as well. Like, I used to commute to my office. My office commute now is an hour and 10 minutes, and I used to commute up to 2 hours, 2.5 hours to the office here. And you might be out there 4 days a week. I mean, I'm home based, but sometimes you could be in there 3 or 4 days a week, depending on what's going on. Literally in Christchurch, if you were not within a 10-minute drive from anywhere, school, office, university, you may have well been on Mars. It was literally like that mindset. So, I think that's changed somewhat now with the earthquake and people sort of moving away from sort of the place of work in the city centre and everything like that. But even now we're talking about where to live, and my wife's like, oh yeah, but that's only 15 minutes. Oh, that's a 15-minute drive. And I'm like, Joe, you forget 15 minutes is to our grocery store. And we think that's just up the road. So I think that changes your commute. If I was commuting an hour and a half, and if I lived in Timaru and was commuting to Christchurch 3 days a week, people would think I was insane. So it's I guess different perspective, but I think that you adapt as well. So quickly I'll get home and I'll have to drive 20 minutes somewhere. I'll be like, oh God, this 20-minute marathon drive I've got to do. So I think that you can easily get sucked up into your surroundings as well in your life.
I loved what you just said about, because Brian always says that, and it's I liked that you said it too, was like you bring you go away, you go traveling, and you find the best of things in cultures and experiences, and you bring them back to New Zealand. And I think that's what makes New Zealand the great country that it is, because it's like a big melting pot of all these, the best of everything has been brought back to, and it eventually comes back to New Zealand, Yeah. And I love that you said that.
Yeah, it definitely. I think parts of New Zealand are different. I think the South Island's probably not as open, maybe, or not as exposed to that potentially. That might be a sort of a generalisation, but definitely in the North Island, Auckland, especially more cosmopolitan sort of city. But I think it's still evolving. It's still changing. I think even when I read the news and see what's happening in New Zealand, I still think, oh, that's so different from when I was there. It's evolved so much. So I'll have a lot to do to kind of get to know the country and the culture myself when I get back, I think. So it'll be exciting.
It will, won't it? What are you going to miss? I know you just said about the bridle ways and the country walkways, and I agree 100% with you on that. But what else are you going to miss about the UK when you move back to New Zealand?
There is stuff. I think the ability to do stuff. So if you want to do stuff, you can. So for example, I've yet to go to Glastonbury. Every year I try, every year I fail.
Well, you can't get tickets.
I can't get tickets.
Really? No.
So next year I won't even be able to try because I won't be here. But that sort of whole festival culture, especially again with kids, like I'd love to take my kids to something like that and experience that. And I think we will be coming back in the summer, so I don't think it's kind of never going to happen. And then obviously, like I said before, the ability to just jump on a plane or get on a boat and go to somewhere completely different and have your kids experience that. I think it's more about the kids stuff now. And I was saying to the wife the other day around, like, they've got like Thomas the Tank Engine World here and Peppa Pig World and all these sorts of things.
Blessed.
It just blows their mind. So whereas at home, I think it's like Rainbow's End and that's about it in Auckland. So those sorts of things. There's like just loads of things like that you can fill your time with. I think it's going to be more about just being somewhere in New Zealand, like being outside, being near, like I say, like on a river or being on the sea or being up the mountain, as opposed to almost like attractions here. So going to somewhere, going to the like Peppa Pig World or going somewhere. It's different. You don't really like. We wouldn't go. Oh, let's just go to the Lake District for a weekend with the kids. At the moment, we would have eventually, but it's
true. True. It's just ringing back to when my kids were little, and you'd spend all weekend going to these, I don't know,
spending money.
Yeah, spending loads of money and going to these super duper like special farm days that's, like you say, got Thomas going to be appearing. And I remember my brother spent an absolute fortune at Christmas because they went on a Polar Express experience and they went on this train and people served them hot chocolate. I mean, fantastic, don't get me wrong, but it cost him a fortune. And also, what's wrong with just giving your kid lighting a little bonfire down the beach or whatever and giving them a tub of hot chocolate and some marshmallows? Just as much fun. But we didn't tend to do that in the UK. It was almost like you were addicted to those doing these really high.
You need to, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And it's like, oh yeah, everyone's doing that. My kids want to go there. And same with birthday parties, Tim. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this, but what's that all about? It's like,
I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but the culture of that is just a one-upping thing, isn't it? It's like keeping up the Joneses, and then and that's the same you're saying about the activities and the attractions and things like that. I think that's what I think, to your point before, I think that's a really good point actually around just doing the simple things. And I think we do a bit of that where we are. It doesn't take much to entertain a couple of young kids. They don't need much in terms of, and you take them there and it's almost like you feel like they should be getting more out of what they do. Like, are you enjoying yourself? Did you like that? And that kind of like, what is yeah, exactly. So I just, the thought of, like you say, like bonfire and it's something that's really simple but accessible. I think when you look at those things around the attractions, they're always really busy as well. There's loads of people and it's always such a mission. You got to go get parking and, drive a couple of hours and there might be traffic and it's busy there. You got to line up for food. And so I think just the sheer volume of people at these things, because that's where everyone goes, right?
Yeah.
But like I say, we could go for a walk with the kids in the backpack on one of these footpaths or bridleways here and just stop and have a picnic or something. We don't see anybody. And that's free and just as nice. And that's more about what we want to be doing in New Zealand, is getting outdoors and just making them appreciate, I guess, nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's not a need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a weekend just to kind of keep the kids entertained, because we shouldn't need to. So again, I think that's the optimum. But whether or not we'll be just throwing money at them or something, but there's there's not as many things to do, so you have to be quite inventive. And I think you are, as a child, you're happier with almost with less. There's not that stuff, so you have to keep yourself entertained almost.
Yeah.
So you will invent things, and you and your friends will whatever go and build forts or stuff and huts, and and play games and just knock around. And again, your parents give you the freedom to do that. You might go over to your mate's house and just jump the back fence and run across and do things. Whereas here, you need to make a play date. Your parents will need to go and take you.
Can't stand that.
Everything's a bit more spontaneous at home. It's almost in the spur of the moment. And even here, you say with friends, "I will catch up." Okay, well, let's catch up, and you both look at each other's diaries and stuff. And we can go from four weekends from next month. We can do it. So home, it's like, what are you doing? Come around.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
I've also said, I don't know if you guys have found this, but there's also a thing here where I used to have it with a friend of mine who would never ever come over uninvited, and he used to say to me like, "You've never invited me around." I'm like, "Mate, the door is always open," and he'd never come over. Whereas at home, people used to turn up at my house all the time so inconvenient, but just knock on the door and be like, "Hey, I've come to hang out."
Yeah.
What do you do? You know, like,
Yeah.
it's not convenient. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just drop everything and hang out. Whereas here, it'd be like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? So,
oh my God, the thought of turning up at someone's house uninvited is just like, it's just sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? Oh, I'm glad you said that. It's so nice talking to a Kiwi about Britain. It's just brilliant, this. I'm loving this.
I hope I don't go home, and because I do find that, like, I remember when I was moved over here the first time, and again, that same friend who was uninvited, his wife, him and his wife, and I took me under their wing in Liverpool. And I'd say something, I'd go, oh, blah, 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 in New Zealand. And she turned around one day and she went, well, if you love it that much, why don't you move home? I was like, okay, I'm obviously talking about New Zealand way too much.
And that's what I asked about earlier, wasn't it?
That was like 3 years in. So I think it's a bit further in the memory now. And I hope I don't do the same, going back and be like, well, in the UK, this is how we do this and this is what they do.
You'll have to watch yourself, won't you? Yeah. No, I know that is exactly why I asked you that, because me and Brian have this conversation all the time. It's like, what is it? Why aren't we allowed to talk about New Zealand? But I don't know what it is, but they don't like it. And I think that's what it is. It's like, you're here now, you're British and you're here now, so shut up about New Zealand. You know, it's really frustrating, but yeah. Oh, what else was I going to ask you? Hang on, I'm not letting you go yet because we talked about the kids and I know I wanted to ask you. So this is what people say to me a lot within the community. They'll say, "Oh yeah, but the money's better the money's better in the UK. You know, things are so expensive in New Zealand," which they are. Houses are expensive, which they are. We know that. They're like, if I move to New Zealand, I'm going to have to take like a 50% cut in wages, and we're just going to be really poor, and we can't afford to live there. Having done all your research, what do you think? You know, I'm not asking you how much money you're spending or anything, but do you think it's going to be equal, or do you think you're going to be like taking a cut, or is it going to be the same, or what? What's your opinion on that?
Well, my wife's not working, like I say. She works here, and we do similar jobs, and we earn roughly the same sort of salary. So we are taking a hit financially moving back. And at the moment, it all adds up on a spreadsheet. So whether or not that will be the reality of it, we don't know. So
what about property and things? You know, what?
Again, comparable. So I mean, where we live now, you're probably spending on a 3 or 4 bedroom house. You're probably spending north of £500,000 easily on just a sort of a semi-detached, which again is not a term in New Zealand you'd ever use, but
no.
So yeah, a semi-detached property. And again, people are obsessed with being in detached properties.
Oh my God! Oh yes,
to detached. It's like you've made it when you're detached, and then the gap between the houses will be about that big, but it is detached.
And what about if you've got one of those things called link detached? So you move from semi-detached to link detached because your garage is joined up, and then like you say, you get that little tiny gap, and it's like, yes, I've made it. I'm in a detached property.
Yeah. I didn't even know what a bungalow house was until I moved over here, and I've lived it all my life. And people were like, "Oh, so it's a bungalow?" I was like, "No, it's just a 1-story house." I'm like, "Yeah, bungalow." I'm like, "Okay, that must be what it is then." You guys have been to live in a bungalow. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we were always anticipating taking a hit financially, and it wasn't about the money for us. I mean, if it was about the money, to be honest, we would have moved to Australia probably.
Right. That's fair enough. Yeah.
But it's not. So it's about being close to friends and family. Again, it's why we chose Christchurch. There's better money in Auckland. But property wise, you're probably spending $1 million on a decent house in Christchurch, which is equivalent to $500,000. So I think they're not too same. You can spend less and you can spend more, same as over here. But I think sort of we're looking at not too dissimilar. I think obviously the interest rates are a lot higher, so your repayments will be a lot higher. I mean, I think we're paying 1.8% interest here on a property, and over there it's probably 4.5%, 5% interest. So already, if you're borrowing a similar amount as well, then you're going to be paying more in New Zealand. But I think your net pay, from what I can see, my net pay is you're on a similar wage. Is better in New Zealand. I don't know with national insurance and tax and the like. When I look at my net pay, I had a company car here, which isn't a taxable kind of benefit in New Zealand. So again, that's just actually a benefit. So there's little things where you can get some stuff back, like even buying property, no stamp duty. So that's a big one. Obviously the estate agency fees to sell are higher, but it's when you sell the property, so you actually should be making capital on that to cover it. Whereas here, you're going to buy a house and you've actually got to front up with whatever £15,000 in government tax to have the ability to purchase a property on top of your deposit, which is just insane. So, I think I guess the cost of living one's the one that really worries me. The kind of day-to-day groceries, power. Christchurch don't pay for water, so your kind of utility bills. But again, no council tax if you're renting. It's just rates if you buy a property. So there's little ways to get money back potentially. And then I think, like you say, around the attractions and things on weekend stuff,
you're going to save a fortune, aren't you?
I hope so. Yeah,
you are.
Commute's going to be less. So
you are.
I ask me in 6 months when my wife's at work.
Yeah, all right.
I can't afford it.
She went back.
I've got 3 jobs. But as it stands, I don't think it's too dissimilar. But I mean, talking to like my family, they're all saying it don't come here eyes open. It is expensive.
Yeah.
But I think what we're not kind of overlaying as well is the cost of living in the UK is increasing exponentially, and every other week the inflation rates, interest rates going up, and inflation rates going up. So I work in the food industry, so I'm putting through cost price increases, as and when, and we're not the only ones doing it. So I know kind of it keeps creeping.
Why are they going up so much? Why are people putting prices up on food? I know this is totally off topic, but
but like packaging, so like even cardboards, the price of cardboard's tripled. The labour costs have increased because there's a labour shortage because of Brexit. Shipping and freight costs have increased. So to get your base ingredients and your commodities, to get those into the countries has increased for those. So all those sorts of things kind of compound add up to something else, and they keep going up. So even we're sending some stuff back shipping, and I'm getting an email probably every 2 weeks saying, by the way, your cost of your shipping's gone up another 400 quid.
Oh, they shouldn't be doing that, should they? You should say a set price and that should be it. That's not fair, that.
Yeah, exactly. But they know they've got you bent over a barrel basically because you've got another option. So
exactly.
We were going to ship our car back, but then they kept sending these emails and we just thought, no, screw it, we're just going to sell it here and go home. So
good idea. Just get one when you're back in New Zealand.
So, but it is a concern, but I think it's been there's so many different dynamics. I mean, even as crazy as it sounds, the war in the Ukraine and the part the UK has played in that has been a part of the decision. It's been sort of as things escalate over here, you think, well, we're kind of in the mixer here. Like you back at home, you're a lot further away if things kick off. And it might seem a little bit overkill. It might seem like you're being a bit kind of hypersensitive to that sort of situation, but you just have no idea what's going to happen, and I'd rather be wrong and be safe than
of course
be right and still be over here.
And it's hard not to think like that when you've got little babies as well, isn't it? It's the first thing that comes to your mind is just like this. Going back to the cost of living though, I mean, we've just come over here, as you know, we went to the UK for a month, 6 weeks, and I couldn't believe the price of things because I was thinking, it's going to be so much cheaper than New Zealand. I reckon that the supermarket food is maybe fractionally cheaper than New Zealand. But I tell you what though, Tim, eating out in a cafe, forget it, because New Zealand is a lot cheaper than New Zealand for that. New Zealand is a lot cheaper than the UK for that. Yeah, I think so.
But even when I think back to when friends and family would come over, sort of the early 2010s, so you sort of like, whatever, 2014, 15, they would always be like, wow, the groceries are so cheap.
Yeah, they did used to be,
it's obviously just kept creeping and creeping. So I think there was a point where it was, and maybe that's people's reference points, because I'm on a few Facebook groups, and some of the groups, like, all they ever do is complain about the cost of food in New Zealand, like, it's whatever, $6 for a head of broccoli. It's insane.
They love the broccoli one.
And then someone will put a picture up of like Aldi with like 49p for a broccoli head. So I must
admit though, when we went to Belgium, I walked into Lidl's in Belgium, right, and they had a bucket like this big a bucket filled with cherry tomatoes for about €2, and I nearly just dropped dead on the floor. I was like,
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You'd need a mortgage to buy that many cherry tomatoes in New Zealand.
Don't tell me that, because I love cherry tomatoes.
You need to grow your own then. That's all you need to do
Yeah.
is just grow your own. Buy a pack of seeds. It's so easy, honestly. I've never grown anything, and I was growing stacks of tomatoes last summer. So just do that then, Tim.
But even at home, I remember, like here, I eat so much avocado, and at home, you wouldn't. It was almost like a treat, avocado. I remember when I was growing up, you'd be like, oh, avocado. Like, you go around your auntie's house and they'd be like, oh, they've got avocado. And here, it's just like all year round, £2 for two. Whereas at home, it's obviously seasonal. So, but I never really thought like that. I never really thought about the seasonality of fruit and veg when I was a kid or younger. But now, those sorts of things, when I'm paying for it, really are of interest.
But I think they taste all the more better when they're seasonal, though, don't they? There's nothing nicer than, we're having strawberries at Christmas, and because they're in season. So
and it means more, I think, as well. You appreciate it more, like I say, because you don't get it all the time. Whereas here, you just go, like strawberries, it's just on your list all year round.
Yeah.
Whereas at home, like you say, like it'd be like strawberry time. You'd be like, and you might grow some or something. You'd be like, the strawberries are ready. Oh, great.
Yeah.
So you really sort of celebrate it. So it'll be nice. Like I can't wait.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see how excited you are. So you leave in what, 3 weeks? Did you say?
28th I leave.
28th of August. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going over first and then coming back to get Joe, is that right?
Yeah, so I go over for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. So I start my job. So again, one of the things at home was my job here, 3 months notice period, so 12 weeks. And at home, it's 4 weeks. So I started having conversations and they were like, when can you start? And I was like, well, in three months' time. They're like, what? So thankfully they waited the 3 months, but I think I didn't want to push them to wait any longer. So and it was an opportunity in Christchurch, which they weren't, coming up all that frequently. So I felt like I had to take it. So I'm going back. They're putting me up for a little while, which is great. And I'll probably sort some accommodation out, hopefully for the family while I'm there. I've got a company car, so we'll have transport when the family get there as well. So I guess it'll just be to bed down. They can turn up hopefully, and most of the things are sorted hopefully.
Yeah.
And take the pressure off. And I'm Joe, I would never even ask her. I haven't asked her, and I wouldn't to travel over here on her own with 2 kids. So I'm going to go back. There's a family wedding on the Saturday, so I'll come back for that, and then we'll fly back on the Sunday. So I think I get in on Friday morning and we leave Sunday night. So it's a tough turnaround for me.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
But yeah,
well.
I won't drink too much at the wedding.
No, just don't.
3 kids in a hangover on a 24-hour flight.
And for God's sake, don't talk about New Zealand. No one wants to know.
Yeah.
Oh, Tim, it's been absolutely gorgeous talking to you. Thanks so much for doing this podcast with me. It's been lovely. And I can't wait. I'm going to catch up with you again, hopefully, maybe in a year's time, and just see how you're doing, if you're loving it. But I've got every faith that you're just going to love your new life.
That's just made me so homesick for New Zealand listening to you.
Oh, it has, hasn't it? I know. His accent.
Yeah, but it's just that positivity that I've missed so much over the last 3 months, just how you can do things and all that sort of stuff, and it's just the way you put everything in place. It was just like, a true Kiwi, you need to go home. Yeah. You really, really do.
I see what I don't know. I'm interested to see, because I talked to you, Liz, and you're saying, well, you've not really lost your accent. I thought I thought you would have had a stronger accent, and I thought that's quite strong. And then you ring home and you talk to, and you, like, we used to ring back in the day. You'd ring like to get a number. You'd ring information, and the lady would be like, the number is 212, and I was like, whoa, is that what we sound like? Like, is that what I sound like? So I think I've lost some of it, but it's it's not as strong as it was. But I just wonder, my daughter, she's talking now, 2.5-year-old. I wonder how long it's going to take her to start sounding like a little Kiwi. So that'll be interesting as that sort of evolves. Yeah. Which is quite a little posh thing at the moment, but I think she'll turn into a Kiwi after a little while, which is quite cool.
Yeah, that'll be lovely, won't it?
Yeah. No.
It's true about the positivity. It's so true. It's such a Kiwi trait, that, isn't it? I love it.
Positivity / maybe some naivety, maybe. I hope it's not.
It's not, because I listened to the things you were saying. They were ringing home with me, and I'm like, yep, you bang on every one of those things. You're bang on, it's so good to hear that coming from you, because it's kind of like you've been in the UK as long as we've been in New Zealand.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that sort of stuff was rubbed off on us, and vice versa. The English stuff was rubbed off on you. It's like when you go, you're in the UK and you're talking dollars, and everyone looks at you as if like,
I'm the complete opposite. So everything's pounds for me. Still, when I'm talking to people about my job, we've been having some meetings on my job, and I'm like, so how many pounds? And they're like, dollars. I'm like, sorry. So the guys that I work with are going to get over that really quickly because it's going to get really annoying.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I say to my sister, it's about $50, and she go,
yeah.
I still deal in kilometres though. I've not let that go. I've even set the car up to be in Ks because I just can't handle miles and kilos and grams.
Miles are too long, aren't they? You know, you see 50 miles and it feels like 50 miles.
Feels ages,
80k is just like, well, that's not it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, even when I go for a run, they're like, oh, so it was just a 3-mile run. I was like, whoa, it was a 5k run actually.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Way further.
That's brilliant. Well, you have to come back and see us in 6 months. We'll be back in November time, so it'll be about sort of January time, won't it? Like, you know. Yeah. So see how you're getting on, and you'll have to...
I'm in the Naki on 2nd of Jan till the 10th, I think. We're staying with my mum for a week.
Oh,
so,
we could catch up then. Yeah, come round for a drink.
Don't bother with not inviting yourself. Just turn up.
See how far I can take that. Hi, guys.
Yeah, but that's good. All the family will be home. So yeah, just let's just gear up and come round for a beer or something.
Yeah,
like
that would be lovely.
That'd be so good.
Really nice.
Come and be on the deck. Yeah.
We can watch Liverpool on.
Yeah, because it'll be on day after New Year's Day, won't it? I think I can't remember who we're playing. Aston Villa, I think it is.
Oh, Brian,
it's my second team now, Brian. Aston Villa.
I know, mine too. Because Stevie G, you would have. That was when you would have been taking pictures of Stevie G around those. Yeah,
it was a interesting. He was about the only decent thing that was happening. Him, bit of Torres at the doors, and then Suarez. Then I left just as Brendan Rodgers was taking over. So it started getting good. I had the Benitez and Roy Hodgson with a bit of Dalglish years. Yeah,
Dalglish, but they weren't the best times, were they? Yeah.
No. So I when people say, "Oh, you've just jumped on the bandwagon," I was like, "Whoa, I've been there through the hard times as well, guys. Don't forget that."
Yeah.
Everyone like from the 80s, you know, with the probably like you when you started doing them when they're in the 80s and they're the team.
Well, the thing is mine was because I was born in Liverpool and the whole family just supported them, and I used to listen on radio. It was Radio Merseyside or Radio City. I'd have a little transistor up on the radio to try and pick it up, like, you know. Yeah. And so that was all the glory years of the European Cup in the 70s, like, you know.
Yeah, it's a heck of I love Liverpool. I really do. I like out of all the places I've lived in the UK, I think culturally that's got its own unique culture. It's not the same as New Zealand, but there are similarities, I think.
That sort of sense of humour is very similar to parts of New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's so true.
So they got me there more so. The sarcastic humour doesn't go too well in British society most of the time.
No. Especially not the Cotswolds.
No. My in-laws have finally managed to get their head around it, I think. So yeah. So that.
We'll let you go, Tim.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
And thank you so much for doing this with us. You're such a lovely guy, and you're gonna.
How long are you guys initially for? You heading back?
4 more weeks.
4 more weeks. Yeah.
So it's crazy. We've come back in on our Kiwi passport. They didn't say anything, so I was like, okay.
Yeah. So that was good.
Yeah.
Oh wow, good stuff. Yeah. I don't have to. I've only got the one. I'm applying for a British passport at the moment, so they'll let me back in if I come back.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
just makes it easier when you come back.
So good, so easy. Just gives you the options of different countries. And
yeah, exactly. Good. Yeah. Anyway, guys, we'll enjoy it.
Right, darling, okay, and we'll speak to you soon.
Safe travels over there, and keep in touch, and flick us your Kiwi number when you just direct message me on Slack, and then we can just keep in touch.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. Sounds good, guys.
Okay. See you soon.
Later. Cheers, then.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. We have loved having you here with us.
If you love this week's show, please share this with your friends. Send it to anybody you know that wants to think about moving to New Zealand, and get on over here yourself.
Tell them how brilliant it is as well. And also, if you haven't signed up for our free 5-day video guide showing you what life is really like in New Zealand, then go over to the website and sign up. You are missing out. This is brilliant. Go over to www.nzahead.com/free and we will send you 5 days worth of videos about what life is like in New Zealand. You are going to love it. So one more time, that website that you need to sign up for the free 5-day guide is www.nzahead.com/free. So we're going to see you next week. Until then, have a great week and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Say bye again. Bye.
Bye.